keep seeing Russia trying to conquer its neighbors and continuing the same pattern of violence. And that is why we need to establish an international tribunal for the crime of aggression with the large international legitimacy and with no immunity for the Russian leaders. These are the parameters I suggest that the European Council table for the other leaders. The important track of giving Ukraine hope and clear path to its Euro-Atlantic future is also working. And a year ago, we provided conditions, and I have no doubt Ukraine will work hard to meet them this year and start EU accession talks. As I said, in Ukraine, there is no discount for them. They have to fulfill the criteria 110%, but I'm sure that they are able to do so. We are also committed to the reconstruction of Ukraine, which must start now. Combined with the EU integration and reforms, it can become the perfect boost for Ukraine's economy, but it's unfair that the taxpayers of democratic countries should pay for the war damage caused by Russia. Ukraine is a victim of Russian war, and according to the international law, it must be compensated by Russia. We need a solution that would allow to use the frozen assets which have been seized with sanctions from Russian citizens and companies to compensate the damages. My government is also working with the legal draft to do this, but we need a European solution. So we hope that others will follow, and we will find speedily a joint approach also within the EU. The new security reality also demands new solutions within the European Union. So more than a year ago in Versailles, European leaders agreed to invest more and better in defence capabilities. We need to follow that with concrete actions. European defence needs a very decisive lift. We need a defence effective Europe able to provide the transatlantic security here. This means also that the defence industry has to adjust to the new security footing. We in the European Union have pulled ourselves together before. If you think about the pandemic recovery and mitigating the energy crisis, these are the cases in point. Another EU-wide strategic effort is due, and this time we really need it for the European defence. The security situation is not in any way better. It's not going to be better for long, and we have to prepare for our defence. Where individual efforts fall short, unity must step forward. The EU needs to continue demonstrating leadership and also its geopolitical weight. I'm very happy that we have been able to do it this far. Since the war has been going on, we have been united and strong, and we have to remain united and strong, not only supporting Ukraine, but also boosting our own defense in order for us to be ready with the new security situation. Thank you.
Hello, Herman Kelomees from Delfi in Estonia. First to President Metsola. This is about the defense clause in the European Union Treaty 42.7, which says that if a member state is a victim of armed aggression, the other member states have an obligation to aid and assist by all means in their power. So is this clause still relevant in this day? And to Prime Minister Kallas about the 1 million rounds of ammunition. How is this going? I'm hearing a lot of discontent. What more can be done?
So on Article 42.7, yes, it is relevant. It is relevant not only for those countries that are militarily or constitutionally neutral, but also in order for us to really fulfill what as a parliament we have been saying for a long time and complete a proper security and defence union. If this 1.5 years has shown us is that member states were not prepared, not all of them had fulfilled their capabilities. We are asking questions as to whether when we talk about strategic autonomy, we are autonomous from a defense perspective, and that's where 427 would be able to give us the reality check as to whether, if there had to be an attack on any member state, how we would pool in our resources. On the other hand, what we have managed to do since the beginning of the invasion is, for example, use solutions outside the treaty, such as the European Peace Facility, etc. All of this, which we would not have thought would be needed. But if 2022 and 2023 continues to show us, they are needed, and we need to be prepared.
Yes, I would actually want to echo what Roberta said. I think we have to also think about our own defense and not only to help Ukraine, but also how we are able to boost our own defense. And when we talk about defense expenditure, for example, in European Union, because that is what it's based on, then from 1999 until 2021, the investment spending in defense for Europe increased 19.7%. The same number for the same period of time for America was 65.7%, and for Russia it was 292%, and China 595%. So basically 600%. So that means we have a huge gap to fulfill in our defense expenditure, and there we have to think outside of the box, not only what we have done so far, but what we can do also more. Regarding the proposal artillery shells to Ukraine, there should be more than 25% of this proposal already fulfilled. Just to remind, there were several pillars. The second pillar was the joint procurement to really get the ammunition for Ukraine and also for our own warehouses. So it needs the boosting over the defense industry also on the other side. So the funding on one side, but also the industry to speed up the production in order to fulfill this. So I'm happy that this initiative was positively seen and also is in practice already so fast, but definitely we have to do more.
Eddie?
One last quick one. Okay. Thank you. Eddie Wax from Politico. To Prime Minister Kallas, with the recent events in Russia and the Wagner Group possibly being moved to Belarus, do you think that would pose additional risks to the region in terms of security if the Wagner mercenaries end up in Belarus? And to President Metsola, could I ask you on a subject which is not particularly related to defence, but it's what's being voted right now in the European Parliament on a directive about sexual violence against women. There's a push for non-consensual sex to be treated as rape, so a criminal offence in the EU, but many EU countries do not want that to happen. Do you think that, whereas the Parliament does, do you think that, what's your position on that? Thanks.
Thank you. On Belarus, we have been considering Belarus as a co-aggressor here, so they have been working together with Russia all the time. So what we know about Russia and Belarus is that they are unpredictable and they are dangerous, and that hasn't changed. And it is very clear for everybody in Europe now, what we have seen already years, that they are unpredictable and they are dangerous. So of course we have to prepare, and therefore what I said before, boosting the defense industry and our own defense readiness in this regard is of utmost importance. It seems to me that there might be feeling amongst some that have much better neighbors than we do, that this is all going to just go away. But this is here for the long haul, and we have to make the steps necessary for that. Thank you.
On your question, Eddie, first of all, this Parliament has been a front-runner on women's rights, even before different member states reached, let's say, or started to reach the ambitions of this Parliament. I start by referring, for example, to the ratification of the Istanbul Convention, which is something that has been called by this Parliament for many years for ratification by all member states. In terms of the specific discussion, this is about criminal law. And whenever we talk about criminal law, there is always the amount of competence that the European Parliament or European piece of legislation can have, and the Member State is about shared competence. Here, as you said, the position of Member States is different. The discussion is ongoing. However, that would not prevent the European Parliament from expressing a position that would at least ask the governments to reflect. As long as we can be around the table with the different ministers of the different governments in order to see where we can, because we are facing a crisis of violence in Europe. Women are increasingly the target. Every week we hear of new stories in each and every member state, and this is something that is not going to go away. And it is not only about best practices or recommendations that will deal with it, but legislation that can be enforced. Thank you.